So these days, you ask any stacker, who is the United States' biggest rival? They're going to say China. Back in the day, maybe the Soviet Union, aka Russia. But these days, it's going to be China. Why is that important? Because those two countries have a huge difference in philosophy when it comes to metals than the United States. Again, you hear China stocking up on gold bullion, silver, other metals, things like that. The United States, you don't hear that kind of thing. You don't hear that the United States is stocking up on gold bullion. In fact, you don't hear anything about the United States and gold. You do hear it elsewhere, though. However, this whole topic went into a whole other realm recently when I was watching a video about how far China will go to get metals of any kind, not just silver and gold. So recently I was watching a video that popped up in my feed about China and Chinese companies actually salvaging World War II shipwrecks. Now, again, there are different laws that are supposed to apply with, regard to salvage of different ships that sink and things like that. But the difference is when you're actually salvaging war shipwrecks, obviously those are tombs, those are graves of the people who lost their lives, on those vessels. So there are literally, bodies in there. But, apparently the Chinese companies have decided that they're going to salvage those metals come hell or high water, which is actually really interesting and kind of sad. But it tells you a lot about how far they're willing to go to get the resources that they need, whether, other countries agree with it or not. Very interesting. So I've linked this video in the description so that you can take a look at it at your leisure. But it was actually really telling, again, about just how far, another nation will go to get the resources that they need. They're willing to grave rob for it. And, myself being a, World War II, I wouldn't say aficionado, but just really liking anything to do with World War II, reading about it, movies, things like that. It was actually kind of disturbing to see that kind of stuff, because I can imagine if you're one of the people who has family that, served, or, God forbid, somebody that was from your family that died on those wrecks, that would be the most sacrilegious thing to, have their tomb disturbed on that kind of thing. Interesting, though. But it tells you a lot. It tells you a lot because, again, when you think of the United States and you think of, gold, we all think of, like, Fort Knox. Who knows what's actually in Fort Knox? There's so many different conspiracy theories about the last audit that they had that was, the 70s? And about the gold that they showed and things like that, was that even real gold? Was it gold mixed with things because the colors on it were kind of off and things like that? Who knows what the purity of that bullion was? It's all really crazy. But when you think about these things and you think about just the United States and, fiscal responsibility, of course, we all know that, our biggest export is our debt and possibly the inflation from that debt. But that's a whole other video. Really interesting thing to take notice of, because a lot of the things that we take for granted, imagine someone salvaging the Arizona and using it as scrap. Now, during the war, they did salvage other vessels that people died in. That's kind of it was what it was, but it's a little different when it's another country doing it, especially a third party, not one of the two parties that was actually fighting. It was a third party coming in to salvage those vessels. The two that I think they mentioned in the video were like Dutch vessels that were sunk in the South Pacific. I can't remember exactly, in Java. I think it was Battle of the Java Sea, something like that. But very interesting and very telling about the environment where it makes more sense to salvage war wrecks than to be able to get those raw materials elsewhere. It can't be cheap to salvage these type of wrecks. I'm not sure if they're in a position where it just makes them easy salvage, or if it's really just they're that hungry for raw materials. Very interesting. But again, I've linked this video in the description so you can take a look at it at your leisure. And again, keep in mind, other people will go full throttle for what they want.